Welcome to the Beau Show. This past weekend, I attended Turning Point USA's AmericaFest in Phoenix, Arizona. Turning Point USA is a nonprofit organization started by Charlie Kirk. It's the largest and fastest growing conservative youth activist organization in the country, with over 250,000 student members and a presence on over 2,500 college and high school campuses. Its mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote freedom. AmericaFest comes at a unique time in our history, a turning point, if you will, not just in the middle of an unending pandemic, but also concurrent with parents understandably upset about their kids' education, whether that's regarding mask mandates and vaccines or about tenured Marxist professors and indoctrination. TPUSA is thus the antithesis of overreaching big government intrusion and is designed to promote intellectual freedom and diversity. A number of country music artists performed at this event, including Brantley Gilbert, Ray Lynn, Dustin Lynch, and Russell Dickerson. Rolling Stone put out a hit piece on these artists for performing at AmericaFest, trying to tie them to the first major public appearance by the recently acquitted Kyle Rittenhouse. Having been in the entertainment industry most of my life, I knew that someone in the media would try to do this. It's just their comic absurdity. So in this show, I will show you some of the interviews that I conducted with speakers at AmericaFest, beginning with its founder, Charlie Kirk.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
What gave you the idea to start TPUSA?
That's what gave me the idea. Sorry, when I was 18, I didn't really know what I was doing. Felt the country was going in the wrong direction. And that was in 2012. I can't say it's going in the right direction, but we've done everything we can. But I can say this is definitely making a positive and meaningful difference for sure.
What have you identified as the singular worst thing that has happened in our education system?
It's hard to say the singular one. Parents that have unrecognizable children. Parents that have kids that don't share their values. Parental involvement in education is incredibly important. That's been deteriorated intentionally for years. And I think that we need to have kind of a reclamation of the educational cartel from parents in particular. And so, I for one am extremely concerned about the institutions we have that are supposed to replicate American values to the next generation. Probably the most important thing to do, and we're doing the opposite. We're teaching them to hate the country.
Well, you've kind of had this kind of, hey, take your best shot at me kind of approach. What do you say to these kids out here who might not be as ebullient or as convicted as you are? How do you give them that confidence?
Well, not everyone has to.
You've got that. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's something people just naturally have. How do you give that to these kids?
Yeah, not everyone has to go do that, but you should know your stuff. But everyone can, articulate, the best they can. And also just ask questions of leftists or people on the other side. You don't have to know all the answers, but just know good questions. Like, hey, has that ever worked? What's your moral construct? Is there a God? What gives you meaning? What is purpose? What does a good life look like? What is a good person? Is America a good country? Like, things like that can all of a sudden make you extract the insanity of the other side.
Charlie, you've got a lot of country acts performing here at AmericaFest, which is exciting. Rolling Stone was quick to jump on that. We knew that would happen. Has there been any concern on the artist's part? How did that?
No.
How did that happen? How did this coalesce? Did they want to be on board with this project?
Yeah, and we work with our team. Really handles a lot of that. I don't dislike country. I don't love it. It's whatever. I'm honest. I'm not a politician. I tell people the truth. But I have to say, they've been like the greatest people. Brantley Gilbert is amazing. The Aldeans who are here, he's not performing, have been unbelievable. Like some of the most humble and focused and just wonderful people, seriously. And I'm totally disconnected from that world. So that's been an interesting learning experience. But honestly, I want to give credit to Brantley Gilbert, Dustin Lynch, and Ray Lynn, and Adam Doliak. After all these ridiculous attempts by Rolling Stone happened to try to cancel the event, they held their ground, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. And we were really critical of cancel culture. We should praise artists that reject that, and they deserve a great deal of credit.
Well, you mentioned Jason Brittany, and of course they've been very bold in their stance.
Yeah,
do you think
Brittany especially.
Yeah, she's been great. She's here. Are there other musical artists out there that you think should be as bold as that?
I'd love them all to be. I don't know the musical landscape that well. I definitely don't share Taylor Swift's politics, right? That's probably fair to say. I know very little about Taylor Swift, but
we know her policies, yes,
right?
Exactly.
It's like that's kind of where I get. I don't know. I'm not a fan of her music. I don't care if people like it or not. Again, that's not my thing. You want to talk college football? I could talk college football all day long. Everyone has a thing you're passionate about.
Right.
Country music, and that is not really it for me. But Kanye speaking out was a big deal a couple years ago. I can't remember. Was it Nicki Minaj that spoke out against the vaccine? Am I correct? Yeah. She was really, I think, an important voice in that. And Nicki Minaj obviously is a different lifestyle than I would approve of, to say the least.
Right.
But I do think you're going to start to see more cultural figures speak out.
Charlie, what do you think the next generation is going to be like? Politically speaking.
I don't think that book's been written yet. So it remains to be seen.
Are you hopeful? Are you hopeful that college campuses are starting to reclaim intellectual?
But I'll be honest. Currently, we have the most drug addicted, depressed, suicidal, least married, least child, least patriotic, most atheistic generation, gayest generation in American history.
Yeah.
That's probably something we should look into.
All right, my last question for you. If you could change one celebrity's opinion and convince them to your way of thinking, who would it be?
Well, he's almost already there. Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be that big of a shift.
Right. Halfway there.
I don't follow Elon very closely. I disagree with him on a lot. He's the world's richest man, worth $300 billion.
Yeah.
He's been great on certain things. I think he gets metaphysics all wrong. Kind of how he views God, epistemology.
But he's pushing back on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, he is. No, so I guess that wouldn't be that big of a turn. I would love to see like a Bezos or something come to our side.
Yeah.
Just for the pure financial advantage it would give the conservative movement. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think the conservative movement could use $220 billion.
Absolutely. Well, Charlie Kirk, thank you so much. And congratulations on AmericaFest.
Thank you. I watch your channel.
Yeah.
I get your Telegram updates. You guys do a great job. And I love how you're critical of the Chinese Communist Party. They're evil. They're tyrants. They're an enemy of the American people. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for your time, man.
You bet.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Many candidates show up at these events, and there was one in particular I was interested in because I have a similar background as she does. I was in the state of Arizona, which we know had some famous election irregularities, and the big audit. And Kari Lake, a former Fox 10 journalist in Phoenix, quit her job at Fox and has decided to run for governor of Arizona. She has the endorsement of Donald Trump, and she may face off against the Secretary of State who oversaw that audit, Katie Hobbs. I thought it was interesting that this could be a female versus female race. And Kari also has some groundbreaking ideas that I wanted to cover. Here's Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake.
Thank you so much for joining us today at NTD.
I'm so happy to be here. That's great.
Kari, there's lots to discuss. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. You used to work for Fox 10 right here in Phoenix, and you were on for 22 years. Is that correct? And you decided in March of this year that you wanted to resign. What led you to that decision?
I really made the decision about a year ago, as a matter of fact, that I just didn't want to do this anymore. I had been covering news for 27 years in Arizona, so I love this state. I love the people of this state. And COVID was really an eye-opener for me. The way that COVID has been covered by the media in general, corporate media, has been not only biased and unethical, because we were shutting people down and telling them to stay inside and don't go out. It was bad information. It was not based on the truth. And there was no interest by the media to cover treatments that were working, doctors who were having success with inexpensive drugs.
Yeah.
And I realized that I don't want to be part of that. If we can't be fully truthful with the American people, and for me, the people of Arizona, then I didn't want to lend my heart, my mind, and my voice to that.
Well,
so I walked away.
You and I share something in common in that we were both part of media operations where I noticed bias. I noticed that even in the copy that was being read, there was, if not misleading, entirely false. Why is this happening in newsrooms across America?
I think it's because there's no diversity of ideology. When you bring in people fresh out of journalism school, they're teaching them to be activists rather than journalists. And I believe that most newsrooms, 90% of them, are people who lean left or all the way leftists. And when you get that ideology, a lack of diversity where there's no conservatives, and the conservatives are keeping quiet because they're afraid to speak out, then that's what kind of content you get, leftist content. And that's what's happening.
Now, you quit Fox, but then a couple months later you decide, I'm going to run for governor of Arizona.
So, yeah.
Tell me about that decision. We know that media malfeasance probably had to have inspired you in some way, but what are the other reasons that led you to this passion to want to run for governor?
Well, when I quit, I put a video out. I wanted the people of Arizona to know why I was leaving. I wasn't just going to walk away from a career that I had excelled at. I was in my prime. We were number one. I've been number one for pretty much 22 years, making a huge salary, a wonderful lifestyle. But I wanted people to know why I was leaving, that the news they're seeing is not truthful. It's propaganda. There's an agenda. And so I told the viewers of Arizona that, and I didn't realize when I put that video out, it would go viral.
Yeah.
And people started reaching out saying, thank you for covering. We're going to miss you. Thank you for covering our state. Thank you for being a good journalist. Would you run for office? You should run for governor. You should run for Senate. It was, at first I thought it was kind of funny. I'm like, oh, how charming that. And I don't think I'm going to go from the corrupt world of media and the fake news to the even more corrupt world of politics. But then it was a steady drumbeat, dozens upon dozens of people stopping me on the street. Would you please run for office? We need honest politicians. We need politicians with integrity. And I thought, okay, maybe I really should look into that. Maybe it's God's way of kind of tapping me on the shoulder. I was just going to go work behind the scenes somewhere. And we looked into it, decided to run, made the decision with my family, had to assemble a campaign staff. I didn't know the first thing about doing that. And we brought in good people who love Arizona. And threw my hat into the ring June 1st. We are now number one. We're 40 points up in the polling.
Wow.
Endorsed by President Trump, endorsed by a lot of really good people. General Michael Flynn, Congressman Gosar, Rick Grinnell, Mike Lindell. We're endorsed by some of the real greats in the America First movement. And as I said, we're 40 points up in the polls. Everybody else, I'm running against 4 others. They're all in the single digits.
Yeah.
Because I understand Arizona. I've covered it for 27 years. The people know me. They've invited me into their homes, and they know they can trust me. As governor, I will do everything in my power to bring back our freedoms that we're losing here in Arizona, to make sure that our children have access to an education that is teaching them civics and reading, writing, arithmetic, the basics that they should be knowing, not a bunch of Marxism. And we're going to make sure our border is secure. Right now our border is wide open and drugs and people are coming in who really shouldn't be here.
Well, let's talk about education since you led into that. I think that you've proposed a very interesting policy of putting cameras in classrooms to see how our children are being educated. Your critics are going to say that that's an intrusion, that's a big government intrusion. But I don't know how different that would be from a parent watching their nanny at home or at a nursery. Explain why you think that policy to make sure that our education system, the way our kids are being educated is proper, is not a big government intrusion.
Well, first of all, the big government is the public schools. It's run by the government. So this is actually, people go, it's Big Brother. I go, no, it's Little Brother. And
watching Big Brother.
Yeah, watching Big Brother. Here's the deal. Parents want to know what curriculum their kids are learning. And the schools are resisting at telling them. They won't let them come in and see what's being taught. As a matter of fact, they're going so far as to call parents who inquire domestic terrorists. So if you're not going to let us know and understand the curriculum that you're teaching our children, then we need to find out what you're teaching. And if you're doing nothing wrong, then there shouldn't be a problem. I'm not introducing cameras into the classroom. Our governors did that when they sent our children home during COVID and said, your kids are going home and they're going to sit at the kitchen table and they're going to be on Zoom all day. They already introduced cameras into the classroom. I didn't. I'm just saying, look, we want to know what you're teaching our children. And we're not okay with you lashing out against us for inquiring about what you're teaching. When our kids came home and started doing Zoom classes, we started seeing what was being taught to our children. We want our children to learn civics. We want them to learn the Constitution. We want them to learn true American history, not anti-American history. We don't want them indoctrinated. We want them to go into this world with the skills and education they need to succeed. And it's just a suggestion. I'd have to have the legislature come in and help make that happen, but we want to know what our kids are being taught.
And maybe remote learning was what paved the way for you seeing this.
They already brought cameras in with Zoom classes, and I will tell you one thing, the teachers union was we're pushing for our police officers to wear body cameras. They were all over that. And now that parents are saying, wait, we want to see what's happening in the classroom, they don't want it. This is not going to be something where anybody can dial up and watch what's happening in the classroom.
Right.
If you find out there was an issue in your son or your daughter's classroom and they were teaching something or pushing Marxism or pushing something inappropriate, you could make a complaint with the school and they could pull the video from that instruction and find out what happened. This is not something that's going to go out to the World Wide Web.
Well,
this is Little Brother watching Big Brother.
Which makes sense. You mentioned President Trump's endorsement, which is huge, or huge, as he would say.
Huge.
I just saw his first tour stop in Florida for his history tour with Bill O'Reilly. They asked him about media, Bill did, and he said he feels a solution is to revisit the libel laws and the Sullivan case with New York Times. Where do you think is the way to make media accountable, since you've been in it for 22 years?
I think where it really started to go off the rails, you know, when I came in the early 90s, and you learned that there were two sides of the story. Sometimes there's three sides or more, but you don't put your opinion in there. And you had a lot of families who owned television stations or newspapers, or maybe a small group where they owned 8 or 10 TV stations.
Yeah.
And during the 80s and 90s, they started getting gobbled up. And pretty soon there were 10 groups who owned most of the TV stations and media outlets. And then there were 9, 8. Now we have 5 or 6 corporations that own our media. That's way too much power in the hands of too few. We need to get back to where people who love this country own some of the news outlets. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it with Epic Times. We're seeing it with all the new alternative media, which, in my opinion, is now becoming the mainstream media. We're seeing a little bit of course correction here.
Now, your competitor could be Katie Hobbs. It could be female versus female. We already have a senator here in Arizona that's also female. Are Arizonans more likely to trust females in leadership positions?
We've had a lot of women in leadership positions, a lot of governors here who are women.
Yeah.
I'll just face whoever they put on the ticket. And I think with the ideas the Republicans have, conservative ideas that this country was founded upon, really, that's what we're asking. We want to get back to our founding principles. And if our founding fathers were alive today, I believe they'd be America First Trump Republicans. I will face any Democrat they put on the ticket, because the Democrats' ideas are failures. We don't have to go far to see it. Here in Arizona, we go to California and we see what decades of Democrat rule has done to a state that used to be heaven, and it's truly turned into a hellscape. And they're driving that beautiful state into the ground, and we know it because we've got the California refugees coming our way, and they're kind of changing the landscape of Arizona, and we don't want that.
Last question for you. If you become governor, what would you like to see to bolster election integrity in the state?
Well, we have to do a lot. We got to get the legislature in there to change our election laws immediately so that our race in 2022 will be fair. And a lot of people are worried about it. We had a corrupt election. We had a shady, shoddy, corrupt election in 2020, and our forensic audit proved that. When I'm governor, I want to go down that list of everything we learned in the forensic audit, and we need to fix it. We need the legislature to help. And we can't have any more county officials changing election law. That's not how it's done. They usurp the legislature. The legislature has constitutional power to set up our election laws, and that's who should be doing it. Not some official down at the county office who wants to see the election tilted toward the people he wants to get in there. We have a mess of our elections here in Arizona, and frankly, all over this country. We need to really examine that, or we won't have a country anymore.
Well, Kari Lake, thank you so much for taking the time with me, and Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you. Have a great New Year as well.
Thank you, Kari. You as well.
Finally, I spoke with a gentleman that I've always wanted to interview, Nick Vujicic. Nick is an Australian-American born without arms or legs, but he's become a renowned speaker, a best-selling author, and a coach. He found his obstacles could turn into opportunities and has become a huge advocate for the pro-life movement, and he's a devout Christian. We spoke not just about his inspirational life, but also about a way to get back to faith and constitutional principles. Here's my interview with Nick Vujicic.
Nick, thanks so much for joining me today. What led you to speak to the audience here at Turning Point USA AmericaFest?
You know, for me, I've always felt like God wanted me to be a megaphone for the unborn. I don't know when, I don't know how. Someone invited me to become a co-founder of a bank that does not philanthropically give to Planned Parenthood, as most church and school banks do. And so to abortion providers, the biggest abortion provider, is stewarded in the banks that we all bank with. And so I said, after I actually got canceled out of a major bank, that's how God said, go ahead and start my bank, please. And I am so thrilled to talk here about the value of all of life, understanding there's a difference between heartbeat bills and abolishing it altogether. And I anticipate a split in our country like never before based on this very linchpin of items that I want people to understand is very close to God's heart. And if we ever want God to bless America again, we need to start repenting, which also endeavors to stop sinning, not just asking for forgiveness, but to actually stop abortion and abolish it before God heals our land again. I'm telling people that first of all, if God can use a man without arms and legs to be his hands and feet and to stand in front of the gates of hell and redirect traffic, then God can use any willing heart. At Abortion Free States, a non-profit organization that I'm board of, I was learning of all the laws that are in America, that as a sovereign state, we actually don't need to wait for Roe v. Wade to be overturned to actually abolish abortion. And so Abortion Free States and Pro-Life Bank proposed. Those are the two things that we're here doing media interviews about. And at the same time, just lighting up fires where fires need to be lit to say, church, wake up, let's get engaged.
Well, since you are a Christian, I think, we're right here in the Christmas season. Do you see, a new poll came out that said that Americans are less religious today than they ever have been before. We've seen a secularization of this world and of this country. We've seen a progressivism happen. How do you think the meaning of Christmas has gotten so lost, and what can we do to get it back?
Look, I think it's inevitable that it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And I don't think we should really be surprised that evil people will do evil things and non-Christian people will maybe do non-Christian things. What we got to understand is if we ever want America Christian again and go back to the roots of our forefathers, we need to then, therein, understand that our forefathers were not political. They were Christian, who were sanctified by God, anointed and appointed as political authoritative positions in our country. That is why we've come to where we've come, because we've been polarized, that we can't talk about politics, we can't talk about the wall, we can't talk about pro-life because that's all a political thing. No, it's a moral thing. National security is a morality. Human trafficking quadrupling in Texas because of the lack of a border. It's not that's just a Jesus thing. Oh, that's just a Trump thing. Are you kidding me? This is a morality thing that's based on our biblical views. And for as long as us, church, are in a coma and not actually putting people on school board positions, or councilman, councilwoman, Senate, House, mayor, governor, where do you think it's going to change? Oh, we're waiting for, what, another president right now? That actually won't even change the state of your city, okay? Last administration, right, look at California slide, still. Why? Because it's up to the sovereign states. That's actually up to we the people, to understand that we the people of God. And if not we the people of God, then who?
Then who? Finally, Nick, what is your Christmas wish, would you say, for everyone right now?
Christmas wish?
Yeah.
Gosh, that we embrace for the worst and really ask ourselves that if we're not part of the solution, are we part of the problem? I mean, talking about pro-life, when was the last time we actually talked about it at our churches? When was the last time we told Gen Z to keep their pants on? 20%, 25% of all abortions in America because of our church members. We don't talk about PTSD and abortion at church. We don't talk about that stuff. Oh, because political. Are you kidding me? No. It is time to actually, my Christmas wish is that, man, how quickly it got bad here, it could get a lot worse in 12 months.
If we don't do something.
If we don't do something. And I'm actually expecting the worst, hoping for the best, but in the meantime, doing what I can.
And inspiring others to do the same.
And that's it. You.
That's right.
You're
hearing it from Nick. You've been so inspirational.
You're in kingdom responsibility.
Is the simple
mode,
answer
dude.
to why you pursued this path of inspiration, when I think you even considered suicide at one time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Is the simple answer to why you've been so inspirational, is it faith, why you pursued life?
100%. It's only because of Jesus, it's only because of God. If there's no real designer, there's no real purpose, then everything is just full of indifference, which is meaningless, which then lacks anything and everything that we actually human beings are designed for. We are designed for purpose. And heaven, and knowing our Creator. Science actually, if you dig deep enough, proves the designer. There's a lot more to that, but it is
You've hit the
all
nail on the
about
head, though,
it's
I
all
think.
about Jesus, his birth. No one was like him. No one ever will be like him. Saying that he was God. He died for our sins. He rose again. we are to be fearless. Fearless. And not comfortable. My Christmas wish is that people understand that their wish for next year shouldn't be about, oh, let's go back to normal or comfortable, whatever that is. No, it's like, hey, if this doesn't make us one now, if this doesn't start putting church members in parliament now or in government now, okay, then you will reap what you sow. As for me and one citizen of Texas now.
Great state of Texas.
Great state of Texas.
Good for you.
We will hold. We will hold. There's too many of us who are not asleep.
It's time to do something.
It's got to be now. It's got to be now.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for your time and your inspiration.
You're
Thank you, man.
awesome, dude.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you.